right, welcome back, everyone. I have a special guest on today. I have Ariel, who's I kind of know from the One Rental at a Time community. Unfortunately, I didn't meet her in Vegas when we were there for the 50K subscriber event, but I caught her episode on Bigger Pockets and I wanted to connect. So welcome, Ariel.
Thanks so much, Mark. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I love your story. I mean, I love how you started and then what it's branching off to now. But why don't you tell my audience a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, a little bit about myself. So I'm a data scientist, currently live in Tampa, Florida, but originally from the Northeast. So around 2019, as I was commuting in and out of New York City for my day job, looked at the New York City skyline around 6 a.m. and I thought, you know what? I cannot picture myself doing this for the next 30 years of my life, being shipped back and forth on this tube and not being able to really fully expand my capabilities. So some things that I really seeked to do was spend more time with family. I spent about 3 to 4 hours a day on that bus. I also wanted to work on my own projects and to be able to get time back to help society in another way. So with that, I decided to try to figure out how could I leave a 9 to 5 job. And I stumbled upon many different things. I looked at maybe having an Amazon business, stock trading, but ultimately the one that really spoke to me was real estate investing. The reason is it's been done for centuries and with people with a lot less resources than myself. So I thought at that stage, if they could do it, why can't I? And it embarked my journey of just reading a bunch of books, listening to podcasts, going into forums. And after about 9 months of that research, I felt confident enough to say, you know what, I'm going to go after my first deal, which will be a house hack in New Jersey. So with that,
Oh.
I started my journey.
But what was it about real estate that really drew you in? Like, I mean, like people are making money many ways out there right now, but what was it about real estate? Was there a specific book or someone that you kind of talked with or communicated with that really pulled you into real estate?
I think it was more just tried and true. Like every single person that I read about that was a millionaire, they all had some investments within real estate, whether real estate gave them that avenue or not. It just seemed like this consistent theme that people with all levels of income would acquire properties and be able to see financial growth from it. And also, I was looking to play the long game. So I knew realistically, if I wanted to quit my day job in like 30 days, real estate would not be the way. So thinking about it in a long-term sense, I saw, real estate could be that low risk but high reward in a 10, 20, or 30-year time frame.
So you said, I believe, 9 months it took you to kind of build a buy box maybe and get that first purchase. So what was it in that 9 months that really what were you looking at? Like, were you talking to like other investors? Like, what was those 9 months consist of?
Yeah, I should have shortcutted by just talking to someone directly. I probably would have gone down from 9 months to 3 or even less. But I was more so like a self-studier and I wanted to know everything about real estate. So I was reading books about residential, about commercial, about, doing syndications. And what really drew me were a lot of the books by Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner, just how to get started. Small, also Chad Carson, Small and Mighty, which you have
Yeah,
back there.
yeah.
Basically, that it doesn't need to be this huge race. And I think today, especially on social media, it seems almost that everyone who's achieved wealth does it overnight. But in reality, there's a lot of people who do it slowly. So those books helped me to recognize, like, okay, I can get more comfortable in this. So I want to do a long-term strategy, not the whole syndication or commercial space. So now I had my focus on single family or small multifamily homes. And then from there, what I wanted to get comfortable with was analyzing deals. So with these books, I started to read like, how do you actually calculate cash flow? How do you get rent? How do you look at expenses? And I would just start to create the buy box, look at different properties in the area and plug them into a spreadsheet to see would this deal work. So after about, I would say doing maybe 30 deals or so over the course of a month or maybe like 2 weeks, I felt really comfortable at that stage. Like, okay, I know how to analyze a deal. I know my buy box pretty much. It's time to start actually stepping into these properties and looking at them.
Okay. So you started at 9 months to really like, so you analyzed things for 9 months, and then after the 9 months, kind of when you started putting offers in, or was it it took you 9 months to get that first property you were saying?
Yeah, so with those 9 months, it was probably like 7 to 8 of them of just like reading books and
Mhm.
listening to podcasts. And that last like 6 to 8 weeks was like really trying to understand the numbers and then starting to analyze the market. After those 9 months, it took me about 2 months to then find a property.
Okay. And did so you during that time also were you analyzing other markets, or you kind of just were staying, close to home, or in the ballpark area, and then just more like you're saying evaluating properties?
Yeah, so there were three main markets I was looking at. So taking a step back, my property goal was to get single family or small multifamily. And then for location, I was looking for a neighborhood or an area that was by a train station and would get me in and out of New York in 50 minutes. One for my own selfish reasons to get in and out of work quickly. But then I was thinking as a whole, there's probably a lot of people like me, recently graduated, frustrated with having to live so far in our parents' homes or, so far from New York because it's so expensive. And I could likely fit into this group of other tenants who may want to rent from me. So as I'm looking at New Jersey and looking at all these different cities by train lines, so many of them that were like horizontal, so like going straight into the city, were way too expensive. So I pretty much X'd all those out. Then there were ones that were like 45-minute rides in, and some of those areas were not so like friendly. So you would go to these areas, the prices were lower, but as you walk through the neighborhoods, lots of trash, not really much upkept maintenance. So I didn't want to go towards one of those areas. I was looking for one that was at least 60% ownership of people that lived in the area actually owned, because usually you see more pride, more upkept neighborhoods. Even sometimes you have a neighborhood watch. So with that, I narrowed myself down to three main areas, which was Woodbridge, New Jersey, South Amboy, and Matawan. So that's how at that stage my buy box got selected. So starting with location of train lines being my goal, and then seeing which ones really fit the criteria as well as the price that I wanted.
So man, you seem very data driven. So I think, like, probably more so than a lot of us that got started, that first purchase for you probably, you had everything calculated, everything made sense. So after that purchase though, has real estate just been a cakewalk? Has it been super easy because you analyze everything so well? Is real estate just about the numbers?
No, definitely is not. So, real estate, I would say numbers can get you 85% of the way and help you to avoid a lot of mistakes. However, you really do need the boots on the ground and experts. So, for example, that first property that I ended up getting, which was a single family home in South Amboy, New Jersey, actually was a recent flip, and there were a lot of issues with the flip. So, although some of them weren't fully captured in the inspection report that I had, within only a couple years of owning the property, the roof had to be redone, as well as other aspects. And luckily, I was able to get the seller to pay for redoing the foundation because there was also an issue that came at closing. A little bit of
Oh.
a of a turmoil there, but I think that helped me to learn that looking back in time, like I want more better trusted individuals to help me fully assess the property. Sometimes don't pay for the cheapest inspection, pay a little bit more to really fully understand the property that you're getting. As well, I will probably never purchase a property that's built in 1910. So these are all like learning factors that if I would have just probably talked to someone who had a little bit more in-depth knowledge, maybe another investor, they could have told me these ins and outs that I had to learn instead on my own without data.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, that even goes to like property management, people that, ask for advice, and they're always like, oh, what do you pay? And I want to get a cheaper rate. And I'm kind of like, this person is going to be managing your properties. And, I'm willing to pay them, market rate if they're doing a good job, because I want them to be, making my properties perform well. Where some people, when they first get started, they're trying to nickel and dime everyone, and I want like 8% instead of 10%. But I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, just pay the 10%, and get this person working for you and build this relationship. So that's a great point. But yeah, so definitely that really, like you said, analyzing the numbers, maybe 85, 90% can put you in the ballpark, but a lot of it is like you're saying, boots on the ground. It's a lot of a relationship. But
Right.
yeah, I love your story. I love, like you said, you did way more analyzing than I did. I kind of just jumped into the fire, and I wish I was able to analyze things like you. So it sounds like, through all of this, I mean, analyzing data is super easy for you. So was there something that you were using that just made this super simple for you to analyze these properties?
Sure. So my first deal, the way I did it was asking my agent to get a full spreadsheet of all listings. And in my head, I thought, okay, it's going to be easy. I'm just going to pull some rent data, calculate cash flow, pick the best property with the highest cash flow. But it wasn't as simple as that. As we all know, especially if you've been in this for a couple of years, data could be inaccurate, especially depending on how dense or sparse the area is, so how much population as well. Properties that tend to need a lot of rehab always end up shooting up as being the ones with the best cash flow. So that wasn't going to be the best method. Instead, what I did with that spreadsheet is I tried to see what opportunity I could have. So I kept hearing across podcasts a really easy way to add value to a property is by adding a bedroom. Maybe not actually building a whole other unit, but by seeing if there's opportunity like an extra den, maybe an oversized dining room that you can convert into a bedroom and increase your cash flow. So with that, I did a simple calculation looking at the square footage of a home and how many bedrooms there were. And I found one home that was almost 1,300 square feet or 1,200 square feet, but had only two bedrooms. And kind of looking at the distribution of what the other properties in the area looked like, I was able to discern, oh, wow, this is actually an anomaly. It's very different from other properties that are two bedrooms. They usually tend to be smaller. So actually talking to my agent and going through it, we found that the property originally was a three bedroom. And then the people that flipped it converted the large bedroom up top that into a master bedroom. But in reality, it was very strange because it faced the street, which most master bedrooms never face the street. It had two separate closets, two separate windows. So that gave me the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to find a deal using data that maybe others wouldn't be able to.
I love that. I mean, yeah, I think I don't know if you know Derek, the ADU guy. That's kind of what he looks for too, right? He's looking for these bigger homes where, like for example, the master bedroom, he can convert it into maybe a standalone unit because it already has the plumbing. But yeah, that's his strategy. So that's what you did, right? You found a different strategy that worked for you, where you can add more value to these properties. And you, like you said, you're using the square footage data and trying to determine which properties could fit that. So I love that. So after that first property, are you still buying more in your area, or did you get to these other markets, or where are you investing now?
Yeah, so primarily I'm in Tampa, Florida, where I've done house hacking twice as well, and both are rentals. So coming from New Jersey to Florida was a pretty big step. Wasn't really sure that much about the market. Have some family, but not much that could really help me on where to invest. So this is where data played a lot larger of a role. How do I actually discern what's the best area to invest in from 3,000 miles away? So from there, I just first started to think of like job growth. What are some of the fastest growing jobs? A lot of them being tech. And you could just search on Google and say, like, what are the top fastest growing jobs? Right now, it's AI engineer as well as cybersecurity. So I was looking to see what areas had growing tech hubs. Austin was one of them, one of the choices that I was going towards at the end of 2019, and then Tampa, Florida. So those started to catch my mind. And as I continue to look at data, I use Google News to see where is new development occurring. So I saw Tampa was redoing an entire new development for their waterfront, where Bill Gates and the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning were putting in millions and millions and millions of dollars to redo this whole landscape. So I thought that could be really great. There was also new transportation. So I knew Tampa now was my market, but actually, where do I invest in Tampa? So that's when it starts to get even more granular. And I'm looking at median prices for where I can afford to purchase, what rent goes for in each of these zip codes, looking at some simple calculations like price to rent ratio. And then ultimately, like once I have this particular neighborhood or town that I'm looking at, I start to look at the maps to see how far would it be from this house to the nearest Walmart, to the nearest Publix, to the nearest hospital. How far would it be to drive into Tampa? So everything needs to be within 20 minutes for driving to the nearest like city hub, and then all those locations that are useful, like hospital, grocery store, those things need to all be within 10 minutes. So from there, I was able to really select just a couple streets that I was interested in to invest.
Wow. It must take you months to analyze all of this, like to determine where you want to invest or what street you want to invest on. I mean, it must take you months and months of accumulating all this data. I mean, how long does it take you now to determine where you may want to invest or what streets you're interested in or how you're looking at properties?
I'd say at that stage, it took me 8 weeks to do. I was in a pretty motivated go mode. Like I'm getting out of cold New Jersey. I'm figuring this out. And each day after work, I would spend 2 to 3 hours analyzing all this data. Now at this stage, with some of my more automated processes and more data that I have access to, like one source that I use, I'm able to see all recent flipping activity, which helps to condense some of that like new growth that I would try to look for manually through news articles. I could now see like where flipping is happening. So that has condensed my time frame from like 8 weeks to about like 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, and you said you moved to Florida and this was all around, 2019, 2020 time. And there was all kinds of stuff going on in that time, right? People, some stuff going on in the world. Did that make it hard for you to move? I mean, relocate the decision?
Yeah, a little bit. So the way it worked was I was working remotely. Well, I was working partially remote. So I would go into the office at this stage 3 times a week. 2 times I would work from home. And now March 2020 happens and everyone's remote. And I'm like, damn it. Now everyone's gonna know the secret. The secret of working from home, how amazing it is. You get more time back with family. Um, and I don't want to be able to like leave this state of like being able to work remotely. Eventually, we're all going to have to go back into an office because that's how all the businesses spur, especially in New York, Jersey City, and Newark. So, kind of like seeing how this could play out for the long term, I thought if we want to move, we have to do it like right now before everyone else who goes remote realizes, oh, I could live anywhere in the country. Like we have to beat everyone to that stage. So March 2020, March 31st, we say we're going to leave in 8 weeks, rent out the property, figure out where we're going to live. So that was that crunch time of doing all this data analysis and was able to close on a home in June of 2020 and then move down to Tampa.
But it wasn't risky at all for you, I bet, because you calculated all the numbers and you ran it in your mind and you said, this is the best decision for us. And I mean, and you just took the plunge, right? I think that's what it sounds to me from this interaction. I can tell that you analyze the data and you're gonna, you run the numbers and it just made a lot of sense for you. And that's why you just jumped into it. You said 8 weeks, we gotta go and we're gonna do this. And you never look back, it seemed like.
Yeah, and there's always that chance, even if you're 95% confidence, there's that 5% chance things can go wrong. However, if you take no risks, you're probably never going to see rewards. So in my head, I was like, what's the worst case scenario? I'm in my mid 20s. This doesn't work out. I just move back. And, maybe I take a little bit hit on my income for a deal not working out, but it wouldn't be the worst case in the world. Like I wouldn't go bankrupt. So having these like thoughts of what could be a possibility and is the worst thing that can happen really the worst helps to say, you know what, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, it made a lot of sense. Are you still working remotely then?
Well, now I actually, as of January, left my full-time role. So after 10 years of working industry, I officially work for myself.
Yeah, and so now what are you just full-time real estate or what are you working on now?
Yeah, I dabble in a couple of things, but the main focus now is a company that I've co-created with two other co-founders called Coffee Closers to help real estate investors find deals. So it basically aggregates a lot of data that I've used in the past to find the best locations to invest in, as well as the best properties based on a strategy. So that's the main focus of what I do on a daily basis. And then some other income streams do come from real estate as well as like little tools that I've built over the last 4 years for investors.
So is this product coffee closers for yourself or to actually help other people find deals? Because it sounds like it's kind of a brainchild. Like this is what you would have used, 5 years ago or so to analyze properties.
Yeah, so it's for the idea is that it's for any American with a little bit of savings that wants to get into real estate and start building passive income over time. So similar to myself, I was the working professional, didn't have that much time to say learn a whole new software, start doing mailers, the whole nine yards. I just wanted to find the best deal on the MLS for my strategy, get a couple every couple once a year or every so often and then have a nice passive income stream. So I think that sweet spot doesn't really exist too much in the real estate industry, especially because a lot of where the money sits is where investors who are doing this full time. So you see a lot of softwares, even like Roofstock, they were originally for that working professional and they switched to go more like institutional because there is more money there. But I think we're fitting in a really big part of the real estate puzzle that isn't fully solved today.
Yeah, I love that. I dabbled with the software. I love it. It's very clean and information is super helpful. And yeah, maybe we can do this again and we can focus more on that and we can, see how it works and maybe look up some properties and see what kind of
Yeah.
information it brings up. Yeah, I love it because it breaks down, right? Like you said, there's different strategies, right? Like, long-term buy and hold, or turnkey, you can say, BRRRR, it has different strategies on there. So for you, are you just all long-term hold? Do you dabble in short-term rentals or anything else?
Yeah, I have a short-term rental as well. That was actually going to be originally a long-term rental. And then the numbers just kind of played out like this could be lucrative short-term rental. So I lived in the property for 2 years. This is also in Tampa, Florida, another neighborhood that has gone from up and coming to now like a real desirable area for people to live in. So it made sense. And when I chose the property manager, fun fact, like you said, it's not just about who is, the cheapest. So I interviewed a bunch of different folks from Tampa as well as St. Pete who manage that area. And some of them I just wasn't really that impressed with. Like I asked, what are areas that I should be focused on? Should I have a pool? Should I or have a hot tub? Like what will make my um, property stand out? And it was a lot of like, well, you could do this, could do that, but not like concrete. Like this is going to increase your occupancy rate if you put a hot tub by 80%, which will give you an extra 3K a month. Like that's what I was looking for. So I did find these two individuals who they had recently started a property management company, about 2 years old, so fairly new, but they had like all of their data in place. And they gave me the right types of spreadsheets that I'm looking for towards the end of the month. And they ended up being actually a lower rate than some of these other guys. So it ended up being a win-win, but definitely never go with just the first person you talk to.
Yeah, I love that. So what does your total portfolio look like right now?
Yeah, so right now it's 6 units with a mixture of the South Amboy home, so one in New Jersey. I have a duplex in Detroit, and then a couple in Tampa for single family. And the one I'm waiting on is a condo in Mexico, which should be done within the summer.
Wait, what do you mean waiting on?
So
Is
it's a
being
new build.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of these developers, what they'll do is build new condominiums by the water, and then you can purchase one of the condos, and it becomes a short-term rental going forward. So the one that I focused in on is in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, which is about 1 hour from Cancun.
Huh. And is there some story behind? Is that where you travel and visit and you want a vacation also?
Yeah, we'll definitely like to vacation there, but as you know, Mark, there's always some sort of data story
Yeah.
behind it. And how I came to decide to invest out of country, it was now like 2021 or 2022. Market is super hot in Tampa, like crazy. I'm getting beat out by everyone. People are coming down from Long Island with all cash offers. The whole family is moving down with grandma, and there's no way I could beat them. So I decide, like, well, what other alternatives can I do? What other markets? But then I start to think back to the trends. How are people responding to post 2020? What are some activities that are happening? So a lot of people I've noticed were starting to do more digital nomad activities, or even just living in, say, an Airbnb for 6 months, moving and just kind of jumping around, which really favors folks who can work remotely as well as, say, in their young 20s. Um, so I thought when it comes to like backpacking and work digital nomads, it can make a lot of sense to be in Mexico because it's cheaper, it's still in the North America and the same time zones. So from there, I started to go to Facebook groups and see where are people like going to in Mexico for digital nomad communities. And Playa del Carmen was a standout as to being like a great area that has a lot of things walking distance, a lot of USA folks who are there. They feel very comfortable. And to get back home, it's just a short bus ride to get to Cancun. And then from there, be able to head back to their city.
Wow, impressive. So is it considered expensive there right now, the real estate, or is it?
No, I mean, you can get a condo if you want to be like right by, like, say, Playa del Carmen or Tulum, right by the beach. You can get a condo for like 120K.
Wow.
It can go up from there depending on how much close you want to be, your water view, all that stuff. But key thing to note, you can't just go with any developer. There are scams out there. There are folks who will tell you they're building this beautiful development, but they don't have the funds to fully build it out. So if, say, 30% of people don't put their funds, what they'll do is just like stop working on the project and just leave. So in
Mm,
order to not have that happen to you, do full research on the developers. So the ones that I went with, they had already done 18 buildings. So irregardless, the building was going to be finished out. They had the financing. It was just me coming in at a cheaper price by doing pre-construction.
mm. I knew you would know some kind of data on that. I mean, that's how this is going. But I love that. I mean, I love your story. I mean, I think you would have helped me a lot in the beginning of my journey because I'm definitely a lot more like back of the napkin kind of data and just kind of it's going to figure itself out. And maybe that's the first responder in me, but it's kind of just we're going to figure it out. But your information and breaking things down I think would have been super helpful. So yeah, any new investor looking to get started, I think your software would be super helpful for them to kind of simplify things and kind of narrow things down for them. And instead of I know a lot of people, they get started and they're like, there's all these tabs and spreadsheet open on their computer and they're looking at here and it's, your software kind of brings everything all into focus and it is super helpful. So maybe we can do this again and kind of look into that a little bit more. But yeah, I love what you're doing. So it sounds like you're in all kinds of groups. I mean, where can people find you right now?
Yeah, you could find me on Tech and Real Estate YouTube channel. That's my main. So once I started the whole investing journey, I created a YouTube channel to document my process, and I put a lot of useful tips on how to automate or analyze your own deals, as well as to gather leads. So you can check me out there, as well as you can reach out to me directly, Ariel Herrera at analyticsariel.com.
And what are you? I think you're like 10K. How many subscribers do you have on YouTube? You have quite a bit, right, on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's a little over 11K now.
Yeah. So we're gonna have an event in Vegas, like a 20K subscriber event or anything, like how Zuber had one. We should start
Oh, I'd
planning
love
that.
to.
Yeah.
I'd
Or
love to
maybe
make.
your rental when it gets built. You're gonna have a event over there.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a lot of fun. Maybe even having it somehow like a mini hackathon within it too.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks for doing this. Yeah, we'll get you back on and we'll go dig deeper into coffee closures and see how that works and how it can help people.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. I
All right,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
Ariel. Bye bye.